Christianity is by far the most widespread religion on earth today, accounting for the religious beliefs of over 2 billion humans worldwide. But with such a large number of adherents brings up an important question. How many of these people does Jesus actually plan to save? Does he really plan to save and love 2 billion of us? This question is of course answered in none other than the Holy Bible itself. Unfortunately, the answers it gives are somewhat conflicting. Let's start by taking a look at one of the most problematic passages of all, Revelation 14. Then I looked, and behold, a Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 having his Father's name written on their foreheads. They sang, as it were, a new song before the throne, and no one could learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. These are the ones who are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no deceit, for they are without fault before the throne of God. I've just mentioned that there are well over 2 billion Christians worldwide today. But if Revelation chapter 14 has its way, only 144,000 of these people are true Christians who actually follow Jesus and will be saved. That means that come Judgment Day, most of Christianity, and for that matter, most of humanity, is screwed. Of course, Christians, at least those who acknowledge that such a passage even exists, have their own ridiculous excuses for explaining away the passage and making it seem like it says something other than what it obviously means. One such Christian is DJan2116, whose page is pictured here. Let's take a look at his argument regarding Revelation 14. When I mentioned Revelation chapter 14 to Djan, he accused me of not understanding the Bible, and in one of his comments told me that the 144,000 are the Jews who will be saved on Judgment Day, and the Christians who will be saved are a different group. The bit about Jews is actually not completely random. It has some basis in the text. If you look before in Revelation chapter 7, a description of 144,000 sealed from the tribes of Israel can be found. Djan believes that these are Jews from Israel who are sealed, and that this is the same group who is saved on Judgment Day with other Christians. But let's see how this view of Djan stands up to what the text says. Revelation 14 clearly states that the group that John saw are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Well, by definition, anyone who follows Jesus is a Christian, and thus Djan's claim has already fallen apart. Even more importantly, the wording is quite specific here to include these several times in the passage. Apparently, these are not only Christians, these are the only Christians, because these are the only ones who follow Jesus' commands. Other Christians have their own ways of rationalizing Revelation chapter 14 to make it coincide with their viewpoints, and one such way is supported by a later section in chapter 7. Some Christians believe that according to chapter 7, a great multitude will be saved on Judgment Day, and indeed, chapter 7 clearly shows a great multitude standing before Jesus on Judgment Day. Therefore, these Christians realize that Revelation chapter 14 talks about those who follow Jesus, and therefore decides that the number 144,000 itself must be a symbolic number and not the actual number, since apparently a great multitude are going to be saved on Judgment Day. In my opinion, this viewpoint is much more coherent and well argued than the nonsense spewed by Djan. Unfortunately, it brings up a rather large problem. Leaving the book of Revelation and turning to the Gospels, we can see that Jesus himself had clear ideas about the number of people that would be saved, and he did not see a great multitude as John claimed. As I mentioned earlier in my Christians Are Not Christians series, Jesus says in Matthew 7 that he will reject on Judgment Day even many of those who accepted him as their Lord. Indeed, just a few lines earlier, Jesus instructed his followers to enter through the narrow gate, For according to him, many and most people enter through the wide gate that leads to destruction, or hell, and very few actually find the gate that leads to salvation. The irony here is that Christianity, again, is the most popular religion in the world today and in the history of mankind. If each religion or way of thought is a gate through which you could enter eternal life or eternal hell, then Christianity is by far the largest gate you could enter, which means that according to Jesus, it leads directly to destruction, ironically enough. Unfortunately, Jesus' promise to reject even good, honest followers comes even more sharply into focus when someone asks him outright, "Lord, are only a few people going to be saved?" Amazingly, Jesus agrees with him, saying, "Make every effort to enter through the narrow door, because many, I tell you, will try to enter and will not be able to." Time and time again, Jesus tells us that he will reject even his own followers who accepted him as their Lord, and he affirms that only a few people will enter heaven. Who are these few people? Well, they're the ones who follow the impossible commandments that were discussed in the Christians Are Not Christians series. If Jesus has his way, then the rest of us who don't follow these commandments are screwed. And here we have the huge contradiction. Who is right? Are a great multitude going to be saved, as John of Patmos thinks, making 144,000 symbolic? Or is Jesus right? Jesus thinks that few will be saved and many will be rejected, including those who call themselves Christians. Therefore, according to Jesus' numbers, 144,000 is a plausible number of people who would be saved. As you can see, it doesn't really matter whether God exists or not, because even if you're within the grand multitudes of people, the billions who consider themselves to be Christian, chances are you're wasting your time, because even if God exists, Jesus says that you will probably be rejected from heaven even if you claimed to be Christian.